Hi guys, this is part 2 in a 3-part track walkthrough series. I'm going to be taking you through some of the production techniques used in the making of the track Recall by Reframe. The track was written in the Future Engineers production sessions and is due out for release on Transference very soon. In this video I'm going to be taking you through the individual layers and elements of the drums. Let's take a look.
In the last video we worked on the intro arrangement leading into the drum and bass drop. Here's the build up again now with the drums in the context of the music. Okay, so now let's listen to the drums in solo again and I'll break down the individual elements. So for the kick, I'm using Kick 2 by Sonic Academy. Now I use Kick 2 quite a lot for the low end layer of my kick drum. The benefit being that I can also tune the key to the root note of my track. You also have more control over the sound of the kick. You can experiment with different positions and pitches from some of the earlier points. So for example, if I move the timing of this second point here, you can hear more of a click start to be introduced into the sound. And also if I move this third envelope point here, you can hear that the pitch envelope starts to become more obvious. So I've used an EQ to clean up some of the low end mud and boxiness from the sound. I've used two saturators, Saturn 2 and Vertigo VSM3, both only by a small amount. And I've also used an EQ after the saturators just to clean up some of the frequencies that the processing had emphasized. Now for the snare, I have used two layers, one for the main body and transient of the snare, which is this one. And then a second layer, giving it a little bit more sustain and snap to the snare. I've grouped both snare layers to a snare bus where I've then applied saturation, bit of clipping and a small amount of compression just to help glue the layers together. The results are quite subtle, but it just helps to gel the snare layers together a little bit, just to give the snare a more cohesive sound while also bringing out the sustain of the second layer slightly. Now that we've got a kick and snare pattern, we wanted to add some percussion. I use Stylus by Spectrasonics quite a lot. It has some great sounds and can generally cater for most scenarios. So here I have a basic hi-hat pattern playing eighth notes. I've changed the velocity slightly of the hi-hats just to give the pattern more dynamics. On the hats group, I have some saturation using Saturn and Black Box, and I've also applied some side chaining to the snare just to give it some space and make sure none of the transients are clashing with each other. To finish off, I have an additional break layer just to help roll the groove along a little bit more. I used Loop Cloud to do this, and as I explained in the last video, The BPM sync is great to get some loops up and running very quickly. Here's a break from a Monroe Loop Cloud pack where I really like the way the percussion combined with the main drums. Here is the loop in solo. So first thing to do is put a low cut EQ just to remove the low frequencies from the kick in the loop so that it doesn't clash with the main kick in the drums. Now you'll notice that the beat pattern we've chosen in our song is not your traditional two-step drum and bass beat. So with a lot of the loops we'll have, including this one, the second snare will fall half a beat later than our main snare. Normally when you're auditioning loops on the fly, you don't want to have to spend time cutting up the pattern of the loop to fit the groove of yours. So a really good feature in Loop Cloud is you can cut the audio file and then it will play all subsequent files in that same configuration. So at the moment you can see that the pattern is set to auto here. Now I can change this, for example, to 1 bar. You'll notice that the waveform has changed. And then using the scissor tool, I can cut the audio as I would normally treat it in my DAW. So I can move this around. Let's just copy this and place it here, which is where the snare lands in our main drum pattern. So now when we play the snares in both loops, they'll be matching and landing on top of each other. Now, if I wanted to, I could preview other loops in my library and the audio will still be cut and placed where I moved it to, which is really helpful when you want to audition loops on the fly and you've gone for a more non-traditional drum pattern. What I'll also do on the return channel of Loop Cloud, other than EQ, is I'll often use an enveloper shaper like Shaperbox. So here is the loop soloed again without Shaperbox. And here I'm using two instances of Shaperbox in conjunction with each other, one for the kick and one for the snares. You could use just the one, but I just find it's a little bit cleaner to separate them. Now you can hear with the volume envelopes on, the transient of the kick and the snares has almost gone, which will leave more space for the kick and the snare in our main beat. So very similar principle to side chaining, however we're using an envelope shaper instead of a compressor. Here it is in the context of the 4-beat again. So the aim of having the break is just to have a subtle layer combining with the main percussive elements. And the benefit of running the processing live on the Loop Cloud channel is that I can scroll through all my loops and the pattern of the snares will fall where I need them to based on how I've cut them and moved the audio. And I've also carved out some space for the kick and snare to sit in the loop without any major transient clashes using the envelope shaper in Shaperbox. Of course, once you've decided on the break you wish to use, then you can drag the audio into your DAW and treat it any way you wish. So that was some quick tips on how I speed up my workflow when constructing a drum pattern. In the final video, I'll be taking you through the processing techniques that I used on the bass line. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and share and head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And if you'd like to join the Production Sessions group, the first session is free. You'll find all the relevant links in the comments.